Hey guys, Stealth here. Welcome to Tactical Tuesday. Yes, it's the same bloody boring map. It is Mudfight, but at least we have a slight change today, as we have a pre-1980s gameplay. This means you can only use units from pre-1980, and in case you want to get into these games, you're going to have a deck that is limited to those units. It's not simply that the game says, okay, this is your standard deck, let's say your 1995 deck, and anything before it is going to get scrapped. No, that's not how it works. You need to have a specific deck for this. The video was sent in, or the replay was sent in by Peleon, and he's going to be using the MiG-25 PD in order to maintain air superiority. His notes for this gameplay was that he says that it's a very fun game mode, because you're going to use different units from what you're used to. It's also shifting the balance of power. From what I've personally seen, the T80B is far superior to what most BLUEFOR nations have to offer in return, at least from the 1980s era. And he says that in this replay he's going to be using two MiG-25 PDs aggressively to maintain air supremacy, so that BLUEFOR cannot use their own aircraft too much or to any great success, because let's face it, BLUEFOR does have some quite good airplanes for this era. The Thunderbolt, for example, can be used, and it can, if there is no enemy AA around, completely shut down an area. Which really doesn't make the life for your tanks any easier. Anyway, we have quite a few players on this match, being a 10v10. We got quite a few familiar faces, I gotta say. Sniper Fire, LKL, Max, Atlas. Let's see if the enemy team holds anyone that I know. I don't think so. I don't really recognize any of those names. Anyway, Peleon is not using any units, or at least not any of the ground-based or air-based units other than the MiG-25 PD, and there it is. MiG-25 PD, let's pull up the stats. This one is elite, which means that those 40% or that 40% accuracy that you see on the longer range missile, actually as well as the shorter range missile, should be taken rather serious. It is no longer 40%, it's more likely to be something along the lines of 50. And this thing has an HE destructive power of 8. If you get hit by one of these missiles, at least if it's a weaker jet, you're going to get one-shotted. And you're just going to get blown out of the sky. Time over target of 195 seconds means that these things can stay around for 3 minutes and 15 seconds before they have to refuel. Speed of 1000 means they're very nice and fast to either get in or out of the area. And with 20% ECM, they're actually not that bad at dodging missiles. They did have to pull out as a Tomcat appeared, and another F4 Phantom J2 is also threatening the area here. Now, we've got Fabo pushing in, a couple of Jaegers, as well as, yep, you're going to see Fliegerfausts, Fuchs. We have a whole load of transports rolling into the forest here. Looks like 113s to me. And lots of them. Look at that. V150s, as mentioned, it's a pre-1980s, so you're going to be seeing units which you might not normally use, such as the M150, which has a tow missile. You might say that 15 AP really doesn't do that much damage. No, normally it wouldn't, but in this situation you can actually get quite a lot of damage done. And talking about damage, look at Peleon here. He scored a 120-point kill on an F4 Phantom, what was that? Peace Rhine? And he shot down another jet for, I believe, 75 points or something. So he already scored the first 2 kills, or at least his first 2 kills, and he didn't actually lose a single aircraft. He did get hit, so one of his aircraft is going to be out of the fight for a while. But the enemy just lost well over, or slightly under 200 points. Which, if those jets were the possession of one person, they are now most likely out of the match. Now it seems that BLUEFOR is, in the meantime, quite heavily pushing onto the left area. That's where all those 113s were heading. Those 113s ferry infantry. I'm just not entirely sure what infantry that is. We do know that they are... oh, there we go. 40 riflemen. That's a very large concentration. And considering that they're all in one group, they all make for a very nice and easy target. They're all going to get stunned at pretty much the exactly same time. Here we go. They're all getting worried. One's already panicked. And as they are pushing into Modus Strelki, they're also running into BMP-1s, taking fire from at least one BMP-T. You can see that they are dwindling very, very quickly. This is not a very well thought out attack by Ivan. Let's see how the right flank's doing. We got an M1 Abrams, backed up by a Crotal, and a couple of infantry units, looks like more riflemen. Right flank is neutralized, which is interesting. So BLUEFOR has a CV somewhere near, and considering the low amount of Red 4 forces, it is not really that difficult for Blue to push in. It looks like we only got 2 guys on this end. In Rob we trust. I'm seeing one SPW-40A from sniper fire and his CV, but other than that there's nothing here to defend the area. And normally you would not really think that an M1 is that big of a threat. I mean, in the normal meta you would consider an M1 to be, let's say, a medium or a support tank. In this situation, they can actually be quite formidable as opponents. So it's going to be a priority to try and take that thing out of action. Now, not just the Fedor zone is being neutralized, but also Dmitry. So they do have Anna. And I believe that's giving them slightly more income than Blue is getting, considering that Red now has 7 and Blue only has 6. As far as points go, Blue is really not doing that well. 230 points versus 700. And it looks like these bombers are going to completely finish off the infantry there. Good bombing run by sniper fire. Tomcat comes in, tries to hit it, finally gets one missile hit on it. And this is exactly the problem that I have with the Tomcat. It is so bloody inaccurate. The Eagles, not so much. Those things you really gotta be careful with. Because even if it is just an F-15A, which again normally wouldn't cause you too much to worry about, now they can actually do quite a lot of damage. M1 Abrams, 2 of them, including a Leopard 2, is now pushing on the right flank. We've got a Malyutka trying to pull back, although there's not that much room to pull back, and with the missiles that this thing has, doing 15 damage and 15 frontal armor, then they're going to need to fire 10, which all need to hit if they want to do any kind of damage to them. So unless we get some sort of support here, the right flank is done. There is an S-24 coming this way, which has 16 armor penetration on the missiles, but it only carries 4 with an accuracy of 35%. So the chances of this thing actually hitting and doing damage with the Flyta are not that good. SU-122-54 has decided to roll away. It's not safe here. In Rob We Trust is also bringing in an Mi gunship. Now the Susong Poes are slightly more accurate at 45%, but they do less damage at only 14%. Which, of course, will still damage an Abrams, it just won't do as much damage as you might like. So it looks like, unless they get some sort of heavy on the right, they're not going to be sticking into this zone for very long. Where they are going to be going is right into center. The riflemen are currently the only thing that seems to be standing between the commandosis on this end, and basically Boris and center on the other end. For now, let's just focus on Paleon, because it seems that he has taken his sights, or he has an F-15A in his sights. Are they yeah, they're currently just circling around. This one's being evac'd. Yep, they're both getting out of here. So it's just a bit of staring contest at the moment, seeing who is going to be shooting at who, and who's going to get into range first. What the MiG-25 has over the Eagle is the medium-range missiles. The Eagle has, I believe, 7-click missiles, or 7 kilometer range missiles for the long-range missiles, and then a couple of short-range dogfighting missiles. The MiG-25 does not have short-range dogfighting missiles. Instead, its missiles have a range of 7 and 5.5 clicks. Here's the Eagle. Let's have a look. Eagle's range is 3850. And while its accuracy is better, it does need to get a whole lot closer than the MiG-25s, which have currently been called in again. And let's see if we're actually going to see a dogfight, or at least a longer range standoff, because I believe that the mission profile for the 25 PD was an interceptor. But I could be mistaken there. Missile goes in, hits the Tomcat. Another missile goes in, nukes the Tomcat. It looks like the Eagle also went down. MiG-25 took one little hit, but that's it. That is 2 highly priced aircraft down. And he just put the score on 480, pushing him up to almost 1/3 of the Red 4 team so far. So he's doing a really good job there. And I think that with that, he pretty much neutralized the BLUEFOR Air Force. And on the one hand, that's a good thing, because BLUEFOR can no longer bring an aircraft uncontested. On the other hand, you could say, well, that's nice, but now you have 2 MiG-25 PDs, which are basically worthless. You can no longer use those things, and considering that they don't even have anything as simple as a main gun, you cannot do strafing runs either. So it's going to be a real question of what he is going to be doing next. But he should have a few points saved up by now, so that at least he might be able to buy another unit. In the meantime, Blue is pushing up down the middle. LKL is trying to defend this town with a couple of granatomets, an SPG-9D team, and 1 Kampfschwimmer for recon, and that's it. Against a couple of units which don't really seem to know how to take cover. This one unfortunately cannot move whatsoever. And the SPG-9 Delta team takes very, very much favor to that. The Falcon is now returning fire. SPG jumps back into the building, and this thing just seems to be firing ground targets. It's not really actually doing anything. Looks like a MiG-25, as I was zoomed in here. MiG-25 flew over. And it is currently engaged with an F-1C. Did a lot of damage to it. This guy is stunned. And there we go. 90 more points. But by the looks of it, that's not the only kill he got, because the last time I checked he was on 480 and currently he's on 610, so I even missed a kill there. Blue, by comparison, is only sitting at 1,000 points. Correction, they're 1,000 points behind. They're not even at 1,000 points. They're at 475. Meaning that they're really not doing that well. LKL's marking the position of presumably AA there. And 1 still pushing forward, although it is not looking as good as it once did. Heavily damaged, almost out of fuel. I'm not sure how it's doing on ammo reserves. But I think they can still pose quite a formidable threat, considering that Red still has very little as defense going on here. An Concourse missile with 20 AP can do a lot of damage, but they're also quite easy to take down, especially if you use machine guns. I think that the Concourse might actually survive though. There's 1 guy standing. Those 2 Abrams are just not stopping though. They're both starting to go a bit worried about their fuel. Already getting into the danger zone there. PT-76 from an Robert Trust is pushing forward to try and get eyes on them. And we do have some BMP-1s. I'm not sure what infantry they're transporting, but it cannot be fantastic infantry in this era. And their AP weapon, the Grom, might be able to do some damage at short range. As it is a heat round, it will always do some damage. The question is, how many rounds can you get off before the Abrams returns fire and nails you in 1 round? As for the missile, it's just your standard Malyutka. Terrible accuracy, armor penetration not that good, but it is heat, so it will always do something. There's the Abrams, and it ran out of fuel. There is your risk, it ran out of fuel. The other one is currently also in green, so it still has fuel, and I think it managed to make it into the tree line, and here's the resupply coming for the Abrams, trying to get that thing out of trouble. MiG-23 BN comes in from sniper fire. I gotta say, I don't really use these things very often, but in this situation, they can do a lot of damage. That KH-23M that he fired did 28 armor penetration damage, which was more than enough to slice through the enemy armor, and before that Abrams was able to get out alive, it just got nailed completely. Now, what is Peleon up to in the meanwhile? Because while he has gotten a nice amount of points, He doesn't really have anything in the sense of ground attack aircraft, or I haven't seen them yet. Left flank is doing really well for Red 4. Commandosis are pushing up right into Delta Force. A couple of riflemen are getting completely butchered here by Commandosi and BMPT. And this is just a very, very lethal combination. Commandosis, especially with a backup from a BMPT, which fires every 6 seconds and does 3 HE damage, at least at best range. And the closer it gets, the more damage it's going to do. Now, take note of how quickly you would normally take down a BMPT. These things have 15 frontal armor, and normally you would actually be able to take these down pretty quickly, considering that 15 armor is good, but not fantastic. And any helicopter with, let's say, a 20 or 25 anti-tank missile or anti-AP point missile is going to do significant damage. The Cobra doesn't really do that much damage. It only does 15, which is just enough to start knocking off bits of armor. But it's going to need to fire and hit with 10 missiles, and it only carries 4. So the BMPT is actually quite safe. The only thing that could happen is that this thing is going to use its rocket pods and do a bit of explosive damage and or stun the BMPT. But we already got an OSA coming up, trying to get this thing to fall from the skies and no longer present itself as a threat. Crotal is heading here, says Paleon, so he knows that he cannot fly out his aircraft. More resupplies are coming in. Mankati 6x6. I don't believe that the Leopard is still there, but we cannot entirely be sure. There's yet another BLUEFOR CV coming in. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, because there must already be one there. But this one might just be trying to roll around and try to park into Elena. But before it gets there, it's going to run into a lot of Red 4 units. So it's not particularly likely that it's actually going to get away with this. In the middle, they have found the BLUEFOR CV, M151A1CP. And you can see a bit of mortar support going up. They're trying to smoke this area. But I'm only seeing 2 Grizzlies. They can try to assault this position with 2 Grizzlies, but against a Granatomets team and an SPG-9D team, both which have the capacity to use the HE weapon against infantry, I don't think that they're going to survive for very long. There's the Leopard 2. This one can again be nailed by the MiG-23. The question is, can we see it long enough for the missile to get to the target? Paleon has brought in an F5B, and if I can just get the camera on that, that would be wonderful. Quite an old airframe, 1968, but do not underestimate the amount of damage that this thing can do. It's a nasty little rocket plane, and I was hoping for so much more from you. If it can fire its rockets, it can actually get a kill, but the Rapier just completely disappeared, and I think that either it fired before the aircraft did, or the aircraft wasn't set to ground attack mode and didn't quite get the kill. Playon's asking in Rope We Trust's BRDM-2 to move up to try and spot the units. I'm not entirely sure why, because I don't think that he has any units to counter whatever's in there. But it looks like sniper fire does. There's an Su-7BM coming in. This one is a bomber, and I think it will start to take quite a bit of fire from the Vulcan. Vulcan not terribly accurate, considering it's not radar guided, but it does make some nice holes in the Su-7. Not sure if the sniper got a kill there. He is sitting at 191 points, but I'm not sure it went up. Left flank is still pushing. Commandosis are pushing on riflemen, but it seems that the BMPT has been killed off. I'm not entirely sure what got him, but I think that it may have been side-shotted, or it was, I don't know, it may have encountered a tank of some sort. Let's see how this match is going to end, and more along the lines of who's going to get which kills rather than who's going to win, because let's face it, we know who's going to win. This tank, if you are ever in a pre-1980s match, this tank is a menace. The T-80B, 14 frontal armor, it has 16 AP on the gun, is quite mobile, quite good at moving around at 500 kilometers autonomy. And it has that Cobra missile. The Cobra missile does 20 points of damage if it hits, and is a real problem for dealing with tanks. The other way for taking out this thing is to try and use air power. Thunderbolt can do a fantastic run on these things, but anything else will struggle. Here's the Leopard 2, for example. Leopard 2 has only 15 points of armor, and this thing has 20 points of missile damage, with actually quite a good chance to hit, especially if you get these things at elite. So if this thing hits, then the Leopard instantly loses half its hit points, which the T-80B can then capitalize on and quite easily penetrate with the main gun at maximum range, whereas the Leopard can only do a little bit of damage at max range with its gun. And consider that it just got hit by a missile. It's probably going to be stunned and or panicked, meaning it's not going to be firing as accurately. And we don't even know what kind of extensive damage the thing has taken. So you could have your firing computer knocked out, you could have some sort of stuck in the mud error, you could be tracked, whatever. That's why blue, at least in the matches that I played in the pre-1980s, blue suffers against red, at least in the tank department. There's a second T-80B that killed off the Leopard 2, and that was enough for and Max to, well, I suppose you could say and Max. Over on the left, all the infantry that was doing such a great job in making headway into the BLUEFOR territory has been pushed back. I'm not sure if blue has a lot of infantry there. Let's have a look. Yeah, that would be nice if I could do it like that. Here we go. Not that much infantry, but they're definitely reinforcing this position. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was the culprit for taking out the BMPT. It does have a 13 armor penetration gun, so at maximum range won't kill or won't even penetrate the BMPT. But if it gets closer, that AP really starts to ramp up, and you are going to start getting into trouble. Over on the right, blue really has nothing left. A CV squad, or a command squad, a rover Pinky, another command vehicle, an empty transport, or an empty logi vehicle. And Atlas is now saying, okay, let's push. I don't think that Atlas has that many forces here, actually. Not at all, actually. MTLBV is pushing. Now, if this is your main weapon to push, then either you're not expecting a lot of resistance, or you're getting quite optimistic about the capabilities of this vehicle. And there goes one of the transports, I think. Yep, that was a logistics unit, hiding behind the trees there. Menkati captured. Nice resupply for the MTLBV, although it doesn't really need it. Personally, I would save the fuel for the SPW. Needs it a lot more than the MTLBV does. Over on the left, looks like the OSA is getting hammered by machine gun fire and actually died to it. But the match is only going to last for 3.5 to 4 more minutes, and with this many players leaving, I don't think that there's really anything left on Red 4. The guys that I haven't seen leave are Dutch, I think AK Guster, Sightale, Ivan, and Wheezy. I think the rest of the team... Oh, never mind that. Wheezy surrenders. I think the rest of the team has left. Napalm Run comes in, nukes the tree line. Although I doubt that there was anything still in there. Yep, there was nothing in there. There's Dutch surrendering. And, well, let's face it. This batch is as good as done. F5B pushes in. Gets a stun on the starship. There's AK Goster moving out. Or AK Ghoster, maybe. Sightale surrenders. Yeah, this thing is good as done. Takeaways from this match. MiG-25 PDs are kinda hard to counter. T-80Bs are kinda hard to counter. ATGMs are no longer as effective as they normally are in the standard matchup. So all the standard tactics, all the standard stuff that you're using might not really work. And I haven't really found a good way to counter the T-80B threat yet. I know ATGMs can do the job, but BLUEFOR doesn't really have ATGMs that are that good. So let's have a bit of a discussion about that in the comments. How would you counter a T80B with a pre-1980s unit in any kind of BLUEFOR consistency? Of course, if you want to make sure that you have the right units in mind, you can always go back to the armory and select just BLUEFOR and go to era pre-1980. And then tell me what unit you would use to try and counter a T80B, because I really haven't found the answer yet. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are on countering the T80B and the MiG-25 PD, because I really haven't figured it out yet. And it is kind of important to know in case you're dealing with Red 4. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more videos.